Hey guys, it's Travis with Academy Endeavors. We have started a new thing here where we are now answering questions in video format, the questions that we often get in DMs on Instagram or emails that we get from just you out there, not clients necessarily, but just anyone in the general public that is asking us questions that we are replying to. We want to record these so everyone can see it on YouTube. I have 6 questions here regarding DODMERB that we are going to answer. DODMERB is the Department of Defense Medical Evaluation Review Board. Okay, it's the medical clearance process to get a Service Academy appointment or get an ROTC scholarship. And it's really confusing, it's nerve-wracking. The human body itself is very complex, right? So with that, there's a lot of issues, complexities, even in what types of cases we're talking about. We're going to take just random questions. Okay, I haven't really prepared for this, and we're just going to go with it and be as helpful as possible and just give you the truth as if you were a client ourselves. And I'm going to pause that because I also want to give an Academy Endeavors update. It is the middle of April 2025. And every year at this time, the academies are giving out all of their appointment letters or rejection letters by this time. Turns out most of the academies have actually offered an extension, which means more people are waiting. And so I just want to give a sneak preview of coming attractions. So those that are listening to this, but are not seniors in high school and are looking down the horizon at what is coming at them, be prepared to wait longer than you'd like to hear news. Okay, if you're one of the lucky few that gets an LOA in the fall, awesome, God bless you. But there are several that are waiting on, I'd say hundreds, if not thousands, that are waiting on pins and needles come the springtime. They've heard from all their other colleges. They might have even heard from all their ROTC scholarships, but they have not heard from the service academies. The service academies are traditionally the last that you're going to hear from, which just adds insult to injury when it comes to how hard this process is. Because you have all the challenges of the congressional nomination, of DODMERB, of the physical component, the CFA, the essays, the interviews, etc. And then on top of that, emotionally, it's the hardest at the end. I want you to at least have the right expectations as you get into this. Expect it, be prepared for it, endure. Now, let's jump into these 6 questions from DODMERB. The first question is, what if I'm medically disqualified for something that I don't have a record of because it isn't affecting me in any way and wasn't looked at by doctors? This person was medically disqualified for something they don't have a record of, and it's not affecting them. What that means, this applicant answered yes in their medical history survey in DODMETS, even though it was not in their medical record and even though it doesn't affect them. So just to be clear, DODMERB, in order to disqualify you, is going based on fact. They're not diving into your medical records, or they're not interviewing your teachers or coaches. They're not Big Brother. They're going based on 2 things. 1, your medical history survey that you did in DODMETS, and 2, the physical exam and eye exam that you went to a DODMERB contractor to do. Those 2 piece of paperwork, the exam paperwork and the survey paperwork, goes to DODMERB, and then they make a determination. And if they ask for additional medical information, then you need to respond at that time with more medical records. So this is a tough one because I don't have the context, but I will just give you a forewarning for those that are listening to this is be careful what you say yes to and what you say no to on the DODMERB medical history survey, because it will have downstream effects later on. Now, I'm not saying, and nor am I encouraging you to lie on the survey, because there are plenty of warnings on the survey, such as fines, such as military confinement, going to military prison, such as a dishonorable discharge. And I worked in a military hospital for 8 years as a hospital administrator, and I oversaw the medical records department. And military doctors have a code for something when they sniff out that possibly you came into the military under fraudulent means. It's called fraudulent enlistment. And yes, it can be fined, or you can be kicked out of the military, dishonorable discharge. Fraudulent enlistment, just Google that. And the code that doctors use is EPTS, existed prior to service. You don't want that, because then you're going to undergo a board, an investigation where they're going to see whether you came into the military under false pretenses. So I say all that rant to say, be honest on the DODMERB medical history survey. you're encouraged to do so because of those possible penalties. At the same time, if there's no medical record of it and it did not occur, I'm not sure why this person put yes. If it was something that there's no record of, it's not affecting them in any way, and the doctor's never diagnosed it. So that is just a question I have. I'm not saying they should have said yes or they should have said no. I'm just asking questions because it is a potential gray area. Now, to you applicants that are listening to this or future applicants, do not do the medical history survey in a silo, in a vacuum, by yourself. Pull in your mom or your dad or a guardian and another adult who knows your medical record to help you fill this out, okay? Because there are some nuances to this survey where they're going to ask specific dates, they're going to ask things about your medical record that you might not know, and the paperwork might not be in front of you. But what you answer will be recorded as an official government record. That is the warning there behind this question. Be careful. When you open up that DODMERB portal, that's officially what it's called, because there's two portals in the DODMERB exam, not to confuse you even more, but there's two portals, DODMERB and DODMERB. In the DODMERB section is the medical history survey, 113 questions. Be careful and don't do it by yourself. Question number 2, is an academy pursuing a medical waiver on me a good sign? The answer is yes, it is a good sign because some they don't pursue a waiver for. Not all candidates do they pursue a waiver on. Only those candidates that have the potential to get an appointment. If you're being looked at for an appointment, it's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee, but an appointment is in the possibility. Then they will pursue a waiver and they will have their doctors look at your record to see if you are going to be deemed worthy of a waiver. So yes, it's a good sign, but it's not a guarantee. All right, question number 3. This applicant says, my DQ waiver was submitted. All documents were uploaded. What's the next step and how long does it usually take? Great question. Timeline regarding the DODMERB waiver process. Let's start with the end in mind. Typically, the academies strive to notify all medical waivers by April 15th. So your DODMERB portal should be updated if you're in a waiver status by April 15th of your senior year or of the year in which you apply. That is the goal. Does it always happen? No, but that is the goal. And why is that? Because National College Decision Day is on May 1st, and they want to have you be on firm footing to make a solid decision one way or the other about where you're going or offer you an appointment. Like, here's the thing, background context. They can't offer you an appointment without giving you a waiver. So the waiver has to come, then the appointment has to come, and that's an appointment offer that you have to accept. And they realize they're competing with other colleges, which you might be deciding on by May 1st, most likely. So they strive to make all decisions by April 15th. It sometimes does not happen. It gets pushed back like it is this year. Because of that, it depends on when you were disqualified, okay? If you turned in your application early, in August, September, October, somewhere in the early fall timeframe, waiting on a waiver could take all the way up until April 15th. Or if you turned your application at the last minute, January 31st, and you found out you needed a waiver in February, then you might not be waiting that long. It depends on when you've turned in the application and when you've completed your part of the DODMERB process, the survey and the exams. But you should be, the take-home message is be checking your DODMERB portal often, because they strive to send you emails when your DODMERB portal updates, but it doesn't always happen. So be checking your DODMERB portal often for updates, and also be communicating with the academies that you're applying to if you haven't heard anything. Don't just be content with being left in the dark. So if you're applying to West Point, reach out to your regional admissions officer. If you're applying to Naval Academy, reach out to your region admissions counselor. These are both in your portal. If you are applying to Air Force Academy, reach out to your Team Blue or Team Silver. And there's also a couple other people that are involved in the process that probably don't want their emails being publicly put on the internet, so I'll reserve that for now. The point is be proactive if you haven't heard anything. And frankly, your emails might not change the timeline because it is what it is, but at least you're getting an answer back, taking responsibility for yourself. So how long does it usually take? Up until April 15th on a rolling basis. You could find out before then. You could find out after that. But likely, if you turn in your application at the last minute, you're not waiting very long. If you turned in your application early, you could be waiting a long time. And that's a frustrating part of this process. But that is what it is. It is slow. Sometimes it is slow. Always focus on what you can control. What you want to do in the waiting is make sure all of your medical records, especially the ones that are favorable towards you, towards your condition, you want to make sure those are submitted in PDF to DODMERB, because DODMERB houses the HIPAA repository for all medical records. You can't email this to your ALO, BGO, field force rep. They're not HIPAA certified. You have to email it to DODMERB, and then the medical waiver authorities can all see the repository that they're sharing. Make sure that you're being proactive to submit the medical information that can help you get the waiver. Question 4. This is a two-part question. This person asked, is there any way for me to appeal a rejected food allergy waiver? And I'm going to answer that next. Is there any way for me to appeal a rejected waiver? So just start with waiver in general before we get into the allergy. You can appeal all rejected waivers. DODMERB will not reject any medical information that you submit. They are required to be open to you submitting additional medical information, even after you've been denied the waiver. Okay, so you can appeal on that basis, but you must have new medical additional information. You can't appeal on the basis of, look at my previous stuff that I've already turned in. That doesn't work. They've already looked at that. So that means you need to go to the doctor, have them evaluate you. You need to go to a new doctor, get a new evaluation, have them evaluate you, and then submit additional medical information. Is it a guarantee? No. Do they overturn appeals? Do they overturn their decision based on appeals often? No, not in my experience. But that is how to appeal. That is part of the process. You can appeal a waiver, but you must have additional medical information. And second part to this question is, can you appeal a food allergy waiver? The best way to combat an allergy DQ is through an oral food challenge, otherwise known as an ingestion challenge. So you ingest the allergen in front of a board certified allergist, not by yourself. Don't kill yourself. Please don't hurt yourself while you're doing this at home. But in front of a board certified allergist, them giving you a certain amount of prescribed milligrams of the allergen, and then upping the dose on a agreed upon time interval and recording your symptoms as they observe you at each interval. That is an oral food challenge or an ingestion challenge. That is medical evidence of if you are symptomatic or you are anaphylactic to the food allergy. That is the gold standard in allergy medicine for combating the DQ and seeing if you could possibly get a waiver. Question 5 now. And the question is, how do we appeal a DODMERB DQ for hypertension caused by inaccurate readings? Okay, so whether it's inaccurate or not is up to one's opinion. But what it sounds like is you either had hypertension in your medical history and you answered yes to it, and that triggered DODMERB to DQ you. Or the other possibility is that there was some sort of blood pressure reading when you went to the physical exam and you measured high or low, in this case high. And blood pressure is one of those things, okay? I'm not a doctor, disclaimer, not a doctor, but blood pressure is one of those things that's very situational. You could go back the next day and the blood pressure could be different. So for hypertension, the only way to appeal is through additional medical information. So you need to obtain a new reading, okay? You need to go back to your pediatrician, obtain a new reading, and submit it to DODMERB. And then tell them in the subject line that you're appealing the DQ and put the DQ code. Okay, put the D code, it's D2345, right? Put it down, put your first name, your last name, and your last 4 of your social in there so they know who you are. And then tell them you're appealing on the basis, and then put the PDF of the doctor's note, not your note. Keep in mind, DODMERB does not respond well to personal statements. If they ask for a personal statement, great. But your personal statements does not really stand on its own. The gold standard is medical records. Now, I don't know the whole history behind this, but I'm just trying to do an honest job at seeing what it could possibly be and then attacking it from that angle. So another disclaimer, I'm not sure what happened in your history, but I would say you need to combat that. You need medical evidence that you're now in basically an argument like you're in a court of law. They have evidence that you're hypertensive. If you don't have evidence that you're not going to get the waiver. So you got to get evidence that says to the contrary, that can be favorable and can be in your corner. Otherwise, they're just going to read your file and they're going to deem you not qualified. And last question, question 6, is I was DQ'd for asthma because I was prescribed an inhaler after age 13. What should I do? And this is a very common one. Very common. Unfortunately, young people are prescribed an inhaler probably too often, but the doctor is being conservative, as they should. They're looking out for your best interest. But unfortunately, the way the DODI 6130 is written, it is disqualifying. The DODMERB Bible disqualifies you for any inhaler after age 13. Okay, so that's the reality we live in. Even though the doctor was being conservative, they obviously didn't know, and you didn't know that you probably were going to pursue the military later. So because of this, what do you do? And the answer is there are 2 tests that can help you fight for a waiver granted. The first one, and it's more easy to schedule and less intrusive, is what's called a PFT, a pulmonary function test. It can be given at your local pediatrician's office. There's several ways to do it. It's usually through spirometry, and you're breathing into a tube and they're measuring your lung capacity. Do not go to this PFT if you have a cold. Schedule it when you are not sick, when you have no upper respiratory symptoms. Do the PFT if you can pass the PFT. If your PFT can be within normal limits, that is one piece of diagnostic evidence that could be in your favor when they're reviewing whether to give you a waiver for an inhaler or asthma. And that's the easiest way. The second and most thorough way is to do what's called a methacholine challenge test, an MCT. A methacholine challenge test is usually given by a pulmonologist. It might not be covered by insurance. So it might be more expensive. You might have to wait a longer time to get an appointment. But this is the gold standard for seeing if your airways are hyper-responsive or not. If you were to pass the MCT, that would be additional medical evidence that could go in your favor, that could fight for you to possibly get a waiver for asthma. So there's 2 tests for that, MCT and the PFT. So that wraps up our DODMERB questions that we got last month. We picked a handful of them. We hope this is valuable to you. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please ask questions in the comments. We strive to reply to those as well. You can also set up a DODMERB consultation with us. It's $500. You pay via credit card up front. You share your medical records with us in a private folder. We review those and then we provide recommendations on a 1-hour call. Okay, we've had several sign up for that, and we offer a guarantee. If you're not satisfied with a consultation, just tell us afterwards that it wasn't valuable to you and you can get all your money back. We have not had to do that one time. Every single time. The family is super thankful and grateful for the service. So pursue that if needed. If we need to dive into details and specifics in a private manner, let's do that. All right, guys, good luck to you.